What's flying higher than Bitcoin? The software company buying up Bitcoin, aka this guy right here, Michael Saylor. There is so much to get into right now. I want to talk about the recent actions of Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy, what it means for Bitcoin, and what it also means for the, $13 billion betting against MicroStrategy and how they could get completely squeezed out of their position. I want to talk about some realistic trade management situations for both MicroStrategy and also for Bitcoin, and get a little bit into the price prediction and analysis based on the most recent information. Buckle up, because it seems like we are very much moon bound. This was early this morning. I have a story I want to tell you. MicroStrategy could soon reveal $3 billion of Bitcoin buys with bond proceeds. So we know that whole 0% interest money that they raised last week, it ended, and they're like, okay, cool, we think the buy is coming in. Well, that's what people were excited for. And then minutes later, they were wrong. It wasn't $3 billion. It was actually, $5 billion. MicroStrategy has acquired 55.5 thousand Bitcoin for $5.4 billion. They bought at 97.8K each. That means as of November 24th, MicroStrategy, ticker symbol MSTR, has just under 387,000 Bitcoin, and they're in for about 22 billion. And that means that their average price is around 56.7 per Bitcoin, which means they're up quite a bit. And by quite a bit. Right here, this is the Saylor tracker where we can just see their purchases of Bitcoin, and they're going to have to throw in some new ones right here because they just bought even more. But you can see he's been buying and not stopping, and it's been paying huge dividends. I want to split this up of what does it mean in the short, medium, and long term. So in the short term, shout out to Brett on Twitter, kind of pointing out the recent announcements. What does it lead to? Announcement, MicroStrategy pops. Announcement, MicroStrategy pops. Announcement right here. Will the third time be the lucky charm and go even more? Or is it going to buck the trend? I don't know. I'm just showing you what happened in recent history of when they do a huge purchase and what happens for that trading session on MicroStrategy. So obviously, I hope you are watching this in time. It also helps that Wall Street is raising its price target. MSR benchmark raises target to $650 per share from $450. We're currently trading at $436. That's another gain of $200+. So even Wall Street is starting to get into the FOMO excitement. So with it, there's a lot to consider. Yes, because of MicroStrategy and how much Bitcoin they own and their, actions that they continually take in buying. If Bitcoin keeps going up, obviously so will MSTR. But if you look at how much Bitcoin they have and what the current market cap of the company is, you're seeing that they're trading at a high valuation. It's not like a 1-for-1. So with that, I think that could lead to a bit more volatility. And in the short term, this stuff is very, very tough to predict. So I would say, hey, if you want to take advantage of a super degenerate, high risk, high reward situation, do it, but also know what you're engaging in. Don't bet your net worth on it. And if it goes X%, whatever you're happy with in your favor, you might as well set your stop to break even, so at least it doesn't cost you anything. Now you're at least playing with a lotto ticket. But obviously part of this in the short, medium, and long term, it very, very much depends on what Bitcoin's doing. So we got to talk about where Bitcoin's going. Bitcoin did a 30x after the 2016 halving, did an 18x after the 2020 halving, and thus far, we're only half. That interestingly does lead quite a bit of room for growth in here. Even if we go from 30 to 8, even if you're looking at somewhere from like a 3 to 5, something like that, there's still quite a bit of room to go. So once again, these are all just things to consider. Remember when we're talking about this, and this is true for Bitcoin, MicroStrategy, or the market as a whole, this is not a complete game. It's not like chess where you can see everything on the board, everything moving at once. It's much more like poker, an incomplete game where you don't know the next cards and you don't know what the other people are doing. In the world of game theory, this is actually the definition of what a game is we're running on the world of incomplete information, which means you have to think about this probabilistically. It's not a puzzle that can be solved because there's just too much unknown information. So I just want to throw that out there before you listen to this clip of of John Van Eck, the guy currently running Van Eck, which has $100 billion in assets under management. His base case for Bitcoin, currently trading just below 100, his base case is 300.
Yeah, and it's great to have you. And when you're probably asked as much as I am if Bitcoin's going to 100,000 next, what would you say?
Kelly, happy Friday. I think Bitcoin's going to hit all-time highs. It hit them today, and I think it's going further, right? My basic premise is that ultimately Bitcoin's value will be half of that of all the gold outstanding. So you're talking about something like $300,000 for Bitcoin.
Why only half the value? Why not a quarter of the value, or pick some other random number?
Well, because maybe I'm more balanced. I think if I were a Bitcoin maximalist, I would say it would overtake gold. But I think that's like a reasonable base assumption.
A reasonable base assumption, half the value of gold. That means we could go to 300K from 100K. That's awesome. But if you think it's going to be equal to gold, you would double that up. You're now talking about 600K. And then obviously, if you're a maximalist, you might think that it's actually going to be worth more than gold. So I want to clarify that not only is this a sky high prediction for Bitcoin, but that's some people's base conservative case, which is obviously not only beneficial for Bitcoin and Bitcoin investors, but also going to be directly beneficial to MSCR, which holds so much Bitcoin on its balance sheet. Right now, the overall crypto worth is 3.37 trillion. Bitcoin is worth about 1.9, and gold as a whole right now is worth about 10 trillion. So that's why we're getting these numbers of 300, 500, 600. And obviously there are some even crazier call outs of, oh, we think in a couple of years it'll be in excess of 1 million, which is it all theoretically possible? Yes, without a doubt. Remember, we're dealing with an incomplete game, so you have to deal in probabilities. Currently, the all-time high is at 99,860. We are a hair away from 100K. If you ask me, I think we are going to hit that, and there's going to be a blow off top where we hit 105, 110,000. That's where you're going to get a bunch of the, oh, I told you so's. And then from there, I do think there's going to be a short-term profit taking, and then we're going to create a nice foundation after that sell-off a bit higher. And then I think that's going to be the launch pad for the next phase. Between now and then, there's one group of people who really don't want it to happen. I'm talking about the, $11.37 billion betting against MicroStrategy. Just last week, it was $13 billion. So we already saw some of the shorts throwing their towel in. They're like, dude, we cannot be involved with this. We don't know what's going on with Bitcoin. We don't know if this is another meme media. They just don't like the position that they're in. And we saw some interesting movement last week when Citron Research announced that they're short MicroStrategy to hedge their long Bitcoin position. So it's not a full-fledged short. It's just a hedging mechanism. But there's other players obviously involved. So falling from 13 to 11.4 billion, we'll call it. So some of the shorts are already getting squeezed out, but I want to clarify that there's still a lot more to go. So in the event, if this happens, once again, I'm not a fortune teller. I don't know where this is going, but in the event that this 11 billion or even a sizable portion of it gets squeezed out, the short interest is still sitting just below 14%. It is slowly but surely coming down. This could add quite a bit of upward movement, So if you have shorts covering, that's one form of buying. As they cover, it goes up, and then you have FOMO buyers. And we also know what's going on with the options chain, where a ton of people are just YOLOing into these far out of the money calls. And if those start to get hit, this hyper negative gamma environment is going to be another self-fulfilling prophecy. So whether it's a gamma squeeze in the options market, a short squeeze in the equities market, or just FOMO buying of the stock itself, well, they all play with each other. They all interact with each other. And then that's how we get the self-fulfilling prophecy of it going and going and going. Now, if you want a hardcore dollar value of where you should be watching, I think that's the poor way to play it. I really do. I don't think you should be doing it that way. I think it should be trend following. As long as you're seeing higher highs and higher lows, the trend is intact. Use whatever your favorite way to identify a trend possibly is, but that's what you should be using. Don't undershoot it or overshoot it. I am of the personal opinion that if you want to take advantage of this, obviously you're betting small because it's a super degenerate trade. When it goes X whatever, however you would be happy with it, move your stop to break even. From there, ride the trend as much as you can. And if you think the trend's over, take your money and move on with your life. But I'm very interested to see how those $11.4 billion of shorts end up handling the new news that Bitcoin is still looking very strong and MicroStrategy continues to buy and buy and buy.